Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Make sure to check out our website and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So on today's podcast, I wanted to recommend a book I recently read that I think will help everybody on this podcast improve their CPA score or just help them study for the CPA test, since a lot of you out there are going to be taking the CPA test. And that book is ultralearning. Now, what this book is about what it sounds like, ultralearning, which is learning better and faster. And a lot of us, we never really taught how to learn. We just supposed to go to school and just memorize a bunch of stuff and then try and spit it out on a test. And the CPA test really isn't any different. And I struggled a little bit with the CPA test just because the materials are so boring. Like I use Becker because, a lot of the firms pay for Becker. And to me, that was just terribly boring. And now I know why after I read this book. And one of the reasons why it's so bad is because it's passive learning. Like watching the lectures and even going to a class is not going to be the best way to learn. You have to learn how to learn before doing this type of stuff, or just to be more efficient. Because think of the financial component of the CPA test. That's the book for that alone is so huge. It takes forever and it's like so boring. So I wanted to see if I could help people out by recommending this book. But not only that, I'll go over the book a little bit. I have a summary prepared. And what I'm going to do is talk about the chapters. And then I'm going to go over each chapter and just a little bit from the chapter. I don't want to give away too much from the book. I want you guys to check it out yourself if you're interested. And I'll also put a link in the description to the show notes where you can buy the book on Amazon, and that'll probably be an affiliate link just so you could help us out. So the first couple of chapters are just, can you become an ultra learner, and then why ultra learning matters. And, I'm not going to really discuss that here. And then chapter 3 goes over how to become an ultra learner. And the steps to becoming an ultra learner are meta learning. And what meta learning is you have to draw a map in order to figure out how you're going to learn. And that's what meta learning is. The next topic is number 2, which is focus. You have to sharpen your knife, according to this book, which is cultivating the ability to concentrate. Next is directness. And this is go straight ahead. Learn by actually doing the things you want to be good at. After that is drill. And that's attack your weakest point and break down the skills into small parts and then be good at those small parts. Next is retrieval, and this is test to learn. Test yourself before you feel confident. After that is feedback. Don't dodge the punches. Feedback is harsh and uncomfortable. After that is retention. Don't fill a leaky bucket. Understand what you forget and why. Next is intuition. Dig deep before building up. Understand how understanding works. And lastly is experimentation. Explore outside your comfort zone. So those are the steps of how to become an ultra learner. Some of them might sound a little bit foreign to you, but let's go over each one a little bit more. So meta learning. This is where you try to understand why you are learning the subject. And in the case of CPA exam, it'll be pretty easy because you want to pass the CPA exam, get your CPA so you can get a job at the Big Four. And you should try and understand the concepts, facts, and procedures. This is kind of hard in the CPA exam because a lot of the stuff you learn here, you might not have learned in school and might not even really apply on the job. Concepts are ideas that you need to understand in flexible ways. These are the things that need to be learned and not memorized. And in a second column, you should write down anything that needs to be memorized. These are the facts, and you don't need to understand these deeply. And there's a lot of things like this in the CPA exam, so that's just something to help you out. And then in the third column, you should write your procedures out. And this is anything that needs to be practiced. And with the CPA exam, it's going to be the multiple choice questions. You need to drill these over and over again. And how much planning should you do? According to the book, planning should only take up about 10% of your time, all your learning. The next thing was focus. Sharpen your knife. Now, we all struggle with focus, but especially with a CPA exam because it's so boring. So how do you improve your focus? The first one is improve your environment. You need to turn off your phone, TV, etc., and try not to multitask. And number 2 is your task. Certain things are harder to learn. And what he means here is like things like CPA exam might be harder to learn because it's more boring and it's really difficult. So you might want to change your environment up and go somewhere where you can, have a little bit more excitement, like a coffee shop or something like that. And the last distraction source is your mind. If you are struggling with things in your life, then you will probably struggle to learn. The next principle is directness. Go straight ahead. So here he goes over some tactics of how to learn directly. The first is project-based learning, which is organizing your learning around building something. This would be hard to do for the CPA exam, so I don't think you'd be using this. Tactic number 2 is immersive learning, surrounding yourself with a target environment. Now here you might be able to do that with the CPA exam courses in person, and maybe you can have a study group and just constantly be studying and have flashcards everywhere, CPA books everywhere, principles, things like that all around you. The next tactic is the flight simulator method. When direct practice isn't practical, it's the next best thing, which would be like a simulator. You probably won't be able to do this because you don't really need a simulation for the CPA exam, but I guess because you can practice it directly through practice exams. So you don't really need a simulator exam. I mean, you can view a practice exam as a simulator if you want. And tactic number 4 is overkill method. Go way overboard. And it just means like be the only thing in your life, which you should probably do it anyway. The next principle is drill. And this is attacking your weakest point. And how to drill. The first way to drill is time slicing and develop skills for sets of time. The next drill is cognitive components and drill different components of what you're learning. The next way to drill is copycatting, and this is copying parts of the skill that you want to drill. An example of this would be drawing from photos. Drill number 4 is the magnifying glass method, and means you spend more time on one component than normal. You might do this for something that you're weak at in the CPA exam. Like if you're good at tax, you might need to spend more time on the financial area, things like that. And the last drill is prerequisite chaining. And this is starting with the skill you don't have the prerequisites for, go through a chain of things you need to learn, and go back to the start if you fail. And what that means is like, if there's prerequisites, then you kind of build up. I mean, there's things like this in accounting and tax. You need to know a couple things before you start building up. If you can figure out a way to do that, then you can maybe use that tactic. Okay, the next principle is retrieval, test to learn. And tactic number 1 here is using flashcards. And many of you already know that. Becker, I think, comes with some flashcards, and a lot of CPA exam stuff comes with flashcards. But there's also websites where you can make your own digital flashcards. So just make sure to think of that. And tactic number 2 for retrieval is free recall. Try to write down everything that you remember after you read or learn something. And you can definitely do this CPA exam. After you read a chapter or a section in the CPA exam, in the CPA books, you can try to write down what you just learned. And this will help because, sometimes you're going to zone out by reading all this boring stuff. Tactic number 3 under retrieval is the question book method. And this one's really good too, because here you write questions for yourself after studying something. And this will make it harder to slack off when you're taking notes. But you need to make sure that the questions are good though. So instead of writing notes of just what you read exactly, you write it in the form of a question. Tactic number 4 is self-generated challenges. And tactic number 5 is closed book learning. So the next principle is feedback. You need feedback in order to get better. And a way you could do a CPA exam is by, taking the practice exams and seeing what items you got wrong. But another way you could do it is, again, by taking a in-person CPA course and getting feedback from the teacher and, providing the practice exams to them, your scores, and they can teach you the best ways to improve in certain areas. Like if you're really struggling in a certain area, maybe they know a way to learn it better. Principle 7 of the book is retention. What are the ways to retain the things learned? The first way is by spacing. And spacing means that you space out the time that you learn things. This means you shouldn't cram. You shouldn't cram for your test 1 or 2 weeks before CPA exam. The next is Procedural Ization. This is like riding a bike. Things like riding a bike or driving a car are easy to remember. So try to do the same with whatever you're learning. Here, I'm not sure how you would proceduralize CPA exam, but if you can come up with a way, good for you. Another thing is overlearning. And this is continually practicing the skill or advanced practice, which is going one level above your current level. And this could just be like constantly testing yourself, trying to remember things with the books closed, stuff like that. And the next is Mnemonics. And this is using visuals and spatial mapping to memorize digits and vocabulary. There's maybe some facts in the CPA exam you can do this with, but it might be a little bit harder to do with CPA exam. So the next principle is intuition. And you build intuition by, firstly, you don't give up on a hard problem easily, because difficulty helps you remember. So like if there's a question on the CPA exam that's really difficult, you get it wrong, you're more likely to remember how to solve it if you learn how to solve it later on. Another way to improve your intuition is to prove things to understand them. An example of this is try drawing a bike or a can opener from memory. You probably can't do it because you never really sat there and thought about how either of those things work. You just kind of know that there's a chain on a bike and stuff like that. But if you had to draw it and draw how it works, you probably wouldn't be able to do it. You have to like fundamentally understand things. So in the CPA exam, you'd be understanding why the principles exist, and instead of just trying to memorize them. Next up is experimentation. Experimentation is the key to mastery. And this means like your abilities stagnate after you master the basics. And there's 3 types of experimentation: experimenting with a learning resource, experimenting with technique, and experimenting with style. So how do you experiment? Tactic 1 is copy, then create. Copy someone better, deconstruct their methods. And the way you could do a CPA exam is maybe look up some Elijah Watt Sellers award winners and try and understand what they did to get such high scores. Tactic number 2 is compare methods side by side. Tactic number 3 is introduce some new constraints. Example of this is artists with too many options are a mess. Reduce your options. And the way I think of this on the CPA exam is maybe you have like too many books, too many courses, and you're not actually getting down to like drilling and doing multiple choice questions like you should. And the last tactic for experimentation is finding your superpower in hybrid unrelated skills. You might have some unrelated skill that you can use on the CPA exam. Not sure how you do that. Maybe you have some like tax background or you're a bookkeeper, and think of the tasks that you did when you prepared a tax return or when you were a bookkeeper, and why you did certain things. Maybe it relates to principles that are in accounting and on the CPA exam, and you can utilize that for learning. That's my summary of some of the things from ultralearning that you can use to help you learn on the CPA exam. I recommend picking this book up if you're going to be studying for the CPA exam soon, and it can really like help you open your eyes to how people learn and maybe help you be more efficient with your time with the CPA exam, because maybe you're going to be working at the Big Four while you're studying for the CPA, and you need to be efficient with your time. And this book's really going to help with that. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website, big4accountingfirms.com, and our YouTube, Big Four Accounting Firms, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening again.